Can you, a person who doesn't grow a garden or have a homestead, still use the homesteading principles of collecting your harvest at its peak and storing it for your family for later use? Can you do that and still be called a homesteader? Does a homestead have to include land? We're going to be answering those questions today in this episode, so let's get growing. Hello and welcome to the Pray Just Plant podcast, the show that talks about growing a garden, a homestead, a healthy family, and most importantly, growing closer to God. I'm your host, Crystal Media, owner of the Red Ridge Farm Homestead, where our mission is to help women of faith find the courage to grow healthy food for their family while building a closer relationship with our Lord and Savior. If that's you, don't let the world hold you back. Pray, just plant. Welcome to the Pray Just Plant podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Media, and today in Season 6, Episode 14, this is a little bit of a bonus episode. We're going to be talking about homesteading. But does homesteading equal land? Does homesteading equal you growing all of your food? What does homesteading mean in this age of growing? Does it really mean you need acres and acres of land to be a homesteader? That's what we're going to be talking about, and we're going to be answering those questions. So let's talk about that. Does land equal a homesteader? Does land equal a homestead? Do you have to have acres of land to be a homesteader? I have heard it many times from my friends. It must be nice to have all that land to be able to grow your family all that healthy food. Or I would love to provide healthy food for my family, but I live in town and rent an apartment, so I just can't. Or maybe someday when we move out into the country. Is that something you've said to yourself? Are you listening to this podcast episode or even listening to the Pray Just Plant podcast, wondering and wishing when someday you might get a homestead? Well, I want to talk to you about something that goes beyond land. Something that is a homesteader's possession, but it has nothing to do with land, and that is our mindset. Because I'm going to share with you the answer I give to my doubting friends every single day, and to others that contact me and say, well, I can't really do what you're doing because I don't have this, or I'm going to have to wait until I get this. What I tell them is not homesteading also a mindset or a point of view? The principles of homesteading is to, yes, grow healthy food, but is it not also the mindset of using what you are given and making the best out of it? So what if you can't grow all of your food in the extreme that I do? So what if you only have a yard the size of a postage stamp? The main point of homesteading is to provide healthy food for your family the best you can. And if that is only a few pots of lettuce and one tomato plant on your counter, then that is all it is. Homesteading is a mindset. Homesteading is where you decide to, yes, still break away from culture. Maybe homesteading to you means that you're going to be making more at home from scratch meals. That's the same thing. Homesteading is about providing healthy food. Well, you can provide healthy food by changing your habit of buying processed foods, going out to eat, and buying those fresh foods from the farmer's market or your grocery store and bringing them home and cooking fresh from scratch meals. That can be a simple step to homesteading. When it comes to changing the way we move, the way we grow, the way we function in society every day, everybody, I even have these excuses when I want to try to lose a few pounds. I can't do it because of this, or I can't do it because of that. Or when I eventually get that really good yoga mat, then maybe I will start doing yoga every day. Those are actions that hold us back. Healthy food can be attained by doing simple things. Going to the actual produce side of your grocery store instead of the freezer side of your grocery store. Or even going to the canned foods that are maybe organic or a little bit more healthy, but avoiding the processed foods or the prepackaged foods. Canned foods are healthy. Frozen fruits and vegetables are healthy. Now, frozen lasagna that has been made previously somewhere else and then rebaked and has tons of preservatives in it, no, that's not healthy. But me as a homesteader, I go out, I pick my strawberries, and I put them in the freezer. On the ingredients is strawberries at the grocery store that is still healthy. That is still something that you can be utilizing right now, even though you don't have the land, even though you don't have the chickens that you want to be growing, even though you don't have your garden going just yet, or you only have a few pots. You can change your mindset of how you shop at the grocery store, how you buy locally, and how you try to attain other avenues of food for your family and still result in becoming and using that homesteader mindset. That homesteader mindset of eating healthy, being frugal. That means like saving for later. Because when I grow a garden, I grow enough tomatoes in that year to not only have tomatoes for fresh eating, but tomatoes for the whole year. And you can do the same without a garden. You can do the same at your local farmer's market or grocery store. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I just wanted to really tell you to stop waiting. Stop waiting for the land to get started on your homesteading journey, because there's so much you can be learning right now. You can be learning how to preserve your tomato sauce. You could be learning how to make fresh bread. No, you didn't go milk the goat to provide the fresh milk for that, but you could still go to the grocery store. You could still buy the good organic milk and learn how to make your bread. You can still do all of those things and be starting your growing journey without land, starting your growing journey with just a mindset change. So we're going to be talking about community in just a minute, how you can tap into the homesteader community that's already out there. But right now it's time for the tips and tricks segment of this episode, where I share a few bonus tips and tricks I use here at Red Ridge Farm. This week's tip is brought to you by the Building Soil Health Handbook. This handbook was designed to help you take the guessing out of improving your soil, to help you become the expert your soil has been waiting for you to be. Many of us think that we're gardeners of vegetables and gardeners of fruits, but we're not. We are stewards of the soil. In this handbook, I walk you through the 4 steps I've used here at the farm to improve my soil. I want to help you become the expert that you never realized you could be. To grab your free copy, go to redridgefarm.org/resources. This week's tip is a fall garden plan check-in. Yes, it is end of May, almost June, but a fall garden is planted in the end of June, in the beginning of July. So I just want to check in with you and remind you, have you made your fall garden plan yet? Have you thought about what you're going to put in your fall garden? Have you figured out the succession planting that you're going to do to make a fall garden possible? Right now is when you need to be making your plan, because it's not very much further until you need to be putting that plan into action. So what about community? We're talking about today how you, as a want-to-be homesteader or someone who has maybe just dipped your toe in, but you're not moving forward on your growing journey because you feel you need this, that a homesteader equals land. A homesteader equals so many other things that you don't have. Today, in this episode, we're talking about how that is not true. So let's get back to that idea of community. I think I kind of hit it on a little bit when I mentioned the farmer's market. But as a homesteader, there is no way, me personally, that I can grow all the food my family needs. We don't have the space, even though I have land, to grow our own beef. But I do have a neighbor down the road who can. So we purchase or sometimes trade what I have grown to acquire healthy beef for our family. And what about apples? I'm trying really hard to grow an apple orchard, but we're just not getting enough from our trees to last us through the whole year. So I have another neighbor that shares part of her harvest with me, and I pay her by watching her livestock now and then. When she wants to go on vacation, I go over and I feed her chickens and take care of things, and she pays me with apples. I'm sorry about the dog barking. But homesteading is a community. We as homesteaders also lose that mindset that we have to be self-sufficient. And I'm talking to all homesteaders. Feel this view that even myself sometimes feel that I have to do everything, that everything is on my shoulders, and that my goal as a homesteader, that's my goal, to be as self-sufficient as I can be. That's true in a way. Yes, I do want to have my own source for grain. that doesn't come from a commercial place. So for my family, for raising our chickens, I actually source our grain locally. Does that mean that I grow it myself? No, I've connected with another homesteader, another farmer that grows grain, and we trade or I purchase it from him. Being self-sufficient means that you have found another source that doesn't depend on the big system, doesn't depend on everything working or the trucks coming in. It depends on your local community. We like to say sometimes as homesteaders that we are self-sufficient, but in truth, I think it's a little easier to say a homesteader is just resourceful when it comes to finding healthy food for our families. We don't depend completely on the grocery store. We don't depend completely on the trucks coming across America and bringing us our food. Yes, we grow some of it, but we also source our food locally. So what about you? Why can't you do the same thing? What can you do to provide your family with healthy food year-round? And who can your community be? Well, first off, just because you live in a city doesn't mean you don't have a community around you. There may be a local community garden or a local farm or ranch just out of town that you can glean a harvest from. Is not your grocery store or your farmer's market, I still go to the grocery store, are not they a part of your community? It certainly is part of mine. When I want to add healthy options to our plate, like say oranges or pineapples that do not grow in our area, then yes, I have to depend on a grocery store. I have to depend on those trucks bringing it across the country for me because we just don't have orange trees and pineapple trees here in Wyoming. Now I have plans and ideas of how I can grow some of those things in a greenhouse, in a passive solar greenhouse, but that's future down the road. So I do buy from my local grocery store, and I purchase those items when they are at peak and when it is in season. Because number one, I'm getting the best option and I'm getting the best taste. Now, do we eat oranges year round? No, we don't. We still try to purchase our oranges and any fruits and vegetables that I don't grow here at peak. And that is important because when vegetables are at peak, and the reason homesteaders can have a better advantage at getting healthier food is because we are picking at peak. We have grown that plant from a small seed, but we have also seen when it has come to harvest. And we're harvesting it and immediately getting it into our kitchen and on our family's plates, or better yet, into the freezer or into the jars so that we can have that peak nutrients all through the year. One of the downsides of a grocery store is that we can go get whatever we want to eat whenever we want to eat. And sadly, what that means is we are going to be purchasing some things when they are not at their healthiest. When they're still healthy, but they're not packed full of all those nutrients because everything has a growing season. So when you go to the grocery store and buy strawberries in the middle of December, those strawberries have probably been grown in a greenhouse or forced to grow in less ideal conditions, because a natural growing of a strawberry is spring is when it blooms. Spring, late spring is when, early summer is when it comes into fruit. So that is why they look better when you go to the grocery store in the spring or late summer when you buy strawberries. That's when they're cheaper. That's when they taste better. So you have a community that you can tap into. You can tap into farmers around you. You can tap into your local farmers market. You can even tap into your grocery store and instead of thinking about purchasing anything you want all the time, but thinking about when you could be getting that produce at the best time. Now, we're going to be talking about how you can preserve from your grocery store or from the farmer's market in just a minute and break through that idea that you don't have to have land to preserve healthy food for your family. But right now it is time for the Growing with God segment of this episode, where you and I dive into the Bible and build that relationship with our Lord and Savior. We are wrapping up our series about our growing confidence with God here in this Growing with God segment, also wrapping up this season. This series is all about building confidence with our Lord, and I've taken you on a small journey of just a few verses that will help you remember that the God is on your side, and that when we turn to Him, we have confidence in the future. So I want to read you our last verse in the series, Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. I'm going to read that one more time, and I'm going to read it really slow, and I want you to absorb it. Bring it into yourself and really think about this. In this time of turmoil, we really do. We feel fear. We feel worry. But I want you to let these words wash over you. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Those words seem so very simple, but I want you to know deep down in your heart that they are true. And in fact, that this is a prophecy in the New Testament of Jesus Christ coming. That righteous right hand, that is Jesus Christ. So I just want you to remember those words this week. Do not fear. Do not be dismayed. For God is your God, and He is eternal. So we are talking about the homesteading mindset, how you as a grower does not have to have land to provide healthy food for your family. That land does not necessarily equal a homesteader. A homesteader is a person who has the mindset to create and find healthy food for their families, and it could be meaning growing. It could mean that you have one raised bed in your backyard, or it could mean that you have a couple pots on behind your sink that you have herbs on. All of that is part of growing, but there's other parts that you can tap into that can help you grow more. And in the last segment, we talked about community, that how me as a grower, I have a community of growers, that there's no way that I can grow all the food that my family enjoys to eat, and that I tap into the grocery store and farmers markets and other farmers around me and other homesteaders to find all the food I need, and that you can do that too. So we're going to be talking about now in this last segment about how you can go and when you can find different produce at peak so that you can start preserving that food for yourself. Now, we talked about how strawberries, that if you notice when you buy strawberries in the fall, you find some, but there are only a few packages of them, and they don't look like the strawberries you purchased that spring. Well, the reason why is because we have fallen into the idea that we should be able to get any food item we want, any time we want. But the truth is that even though there are strawberries on the grocery store shelves in the middle of December, those strawberries were probably grown in greenhouses and forced to grow in less ideal conditions. They were also probably shipped from further away, meaning that they were probably picked when they were not ripe. They would ripen on the trip to your grocery store. The main concept of consuming healthy food is to pick that food at the appropriate time or when it's in season, and storing that food to be eaten when it's out of season, but without losing too much of its natural nutrients and flavor. This is my main job as a homesteader, right? So why can't you do the same thing, but just from your grocery store? And the answer is that you can. You can buy fruits and vegetables that are in season and usually on sale in bulk from your grocery store. You can then preserve those same fruits and vegetables in the same ways that I do, in freezing and canning, so that your family can enjoy those delicious tidbits all year round. And thus, by doing this, by preserving those foods when they're in peak, you become an honorary homesteader. Yes, homesteader does not equal land. Homesteading is a mindset. Now, I have a blog series all about what we're talking about. It's called Can You Homestead Without a Homestead series, 4 different blog posts. And the first one, we talk about what is in peak in spring. And then the next one is what is in peak in summer, what's in peak in fall, and the last is what is in peak in winter. Well, no, there's not a lot of fruits and vegetables in peak in winter, but winter is when you can spend that little extra money to stock up your pantry with the flour and sugar and the things that you need to cook from scratch. So I want to help you out with a few of these ideas. And if you check out each of these blog posts, I even include a few recipes that you can do for some of those vegetables, either in preserving them or in just cooking them fresh for your family. So in the spring, I'm just going to run through the list really quick. In the spring, you can be stocking up on, and spring is the months from March, April, and May. Apricots, asparagus, new potatoes. That's potatoes that haven't gotten huge, but they're the smaller new potatoes. Potatoes are a great source of nutrients. Peas, snow peas, rhubarb, strawberries, and spinach. So those are some great things that you can be looking for in the months of March, April, and May in your grocery store. You're going to find these throughout the year. Rhubarb, I have only ever seen in these months. And asparagus as well. You can really see the difference when you purchase asparagus in this season, how good and tender it is compared to the harder and woodier asparagus that you get later in the season. So when you do this, when you pick at peak and find those fruits and vegetables that are available during that time, you're going to be getting the best nutrients for your family. Now, what you can find in the summer that you can be stocking up on are blackberries, blueberries, peppers, carrots, corn, cucumbers, green beans, peaches, pears, raspberries, tomatoes, zucchinis. And the summer months are between June, July, and August. That's when you're going to be finding these in more volume. So you're not going to be hoarding any. You're not going to be worrying about taking all of the strawberries because there's going to be tons and tons of strawberries available in the spring. When you get your 12 pack of strawberries, you're not going to be taking too much because there already is an overflow. And if you notice, during the spring, strawberries are a little cheaper. Asparagus is a little cheaper. In the summer, buying peppers, they're a little bit more cheaper. And that's because of the supply and demand. When there's greater supply, the price goes down. When there's less supply, the price has to go up. So when you are seeing those vegetables on sale, that is when those vegetables are normally at their peak because there's going to be lots of them. Now, in the fall, you're going to be having, and the fall is September, October, November, you're going to be having apples, beets, broccoli, cauliflower, celery, cranberries, onions, pumpkins, sweet potatoes and yams, turnips, and winter squash. Just like on the homestead, if you think about when these things are going to be available in the garden and then you go and purchase those at your grocery store, that's when you're going to be getting them in peak. And you can also learn more about what's going to be more at peak in your area by going to farmers market, because those farmers are growing right there in the same zone you are, probably not even 2 or 3 miles from you, and they are bringing in produce, and you're going to be able to see what kind of produce they're bringing in, and those are the things that you should be buying from them, the farmers market, and maybe a little extra from your grocery store so that you can preserve it for later for your family, just like I do. You can be a homesteader without having tons and tons of land. And in the winter, what I like to stock up on is, of course, oranges, all of the citrus, the oranges, the pineapple, the grapefruit, the lemons, the limes, all of those are really good. But also think about your pantry. Winter is a great time to be buying those dried beans and lentils, or your baked goods, like your flour and your sugar and your baking soda and your cornmeal and your cocoa powder and salt, making sure that you have those on hand so that you want to use up those frozen strawberries you got that spring. You can make that strawberry crisp that you want to make. Also, canned meats. Canned meats can offer a shelf-stable and convenient option for high-protein meals in the winter. even if the electricity goes out, because they're already cooked. This is things like tuna, chicken, and salmon at the grocery store. But you can also buy local meats from your local growers, and maybe you don't have the room for a big, huge freezer. Then maybe you can can up some of that meat. And if you want to learn all about these different ways of preserving, I have lots of blog posts and episodes talking about the 8 ways you can preserve your harvest. Your harvest being from the grocery store, right? Like asparagus. If you buy a bunch of asparagus, but you don't know how to preserve it and you don't know how you want to cook it, or even recipes, I have another blog series called Planning Beyond the Harvest with, and I think there's potatoes, asparagus, tomatoes. I think there's 2 actually for tomatoes, one for eating tomatoes fresh, one for preserving tomatoes. I think I have 20 different fruits and vegetables. I even have a book called Planning Beyond the Harvest, and it talks about this same thing, how you as a grower can plan beyond the harvest. Yes, if you're growing your own food, but also if you are preserving from the grocery store. Some other things that you can be stocking up for in the winter are canned soups and chilies, grains, nuts, seeds, and nut butters, broth, spices, dried fruit, pasta and rice, condiments, and so many more things. Look at your pantry. What are some things that you can stock up in your pantry? You are a grower, and if you want to provide healthy food for your family, that does not mean that you have to wait. That does not mean you have to sit here and say, well, I don't have land. I don't have a garden. I don't have these things. But what you do have is you have your hands. You have your mindset. You can be a homesteader without land. You can be a homesteader by just taking on that frugal mindset of purchasing fruits and vegetables when they're at peak, preserving them for your family, learning how to cook from scratch, learning how to make a menu plan, and making sure that all the things that you do preserve are being utilized and your family is enjoying the healthy food. You can do that. Homesteading is not all about growing your own food. It's about growing in the idea of providing the most healthy food you can for your family. Now, I would love to help you out with this journey. You can check out these 4 blog posts. I'm going to put those down in the description below. But if you want to learn more about canning and preserving, or my ebook, Planning Beyond the Harvest, be sure to check out the show notes of this episode, because the description is just below. I only have so many words that I can put down there that can help you continue your growing journey. But if you click on the show notes, you can be transported to my website where you can find more. And I have the space to go deeper and connect you with more things that will help you on your growing journey. So I want to thank you for joining me here at the Pray Just Plant podcast. If this is your first time, I want to welcome you to the Red Ridge Farm Fellowship of Fellow Growers. And if you want to join our Facebook group and join our community, you can do that too down below in the description. I will have a link there. And if you want any resources or any ideas of more growing and how you can walk and grow in the mindset of a homesteader, be sure to check out the show notes. And I want to remind you again, don't let the world hold you back. Pray, just plant.